Hello and welcome to PDFsupply.com. Today we're going to be discussing troubleshooting on an RX7i processor, particularly the IC698CPE010. Now, troubleshooting is going to depend on the sort of issue that you're having. So there's a few things that we can go over. The first thing is, if the processor is not powering up and the processor has been in and out of the rack, the first thing that I would check is just take a brief look at the board itself as I'm holding. Please keep in mind that these are extremely static sensitive parts and you should be wearing gloves or have some sort of static related equipment to combat that. I would take a brief overlook and see that all the chips are in place, there's no burn marks, there's no burnt traces, and then I would check all the pins to make sure that the pins are in the right alignment and they're not bent or pushed in. If the processor looks good, and the next step is, or if the processor powers up, I would go ahead and put it in the rack. Right now my test unit here is a IC698CPE010 rack, an IC698 PSA 100 power supply, 120 volt, and of course the CPE010. So first thing I would do, of course, is power it up and check for my light status. I'm going to look for an OK light. The OK light indicates that the processor has gone through all of its self-diagnostic and feels that it's in good health. Now, if you're still having problems after an OK light, you want to do a little bit of diagnostics using your Prophecy Machine Edition. You would connect up to it. Make sure that you have good connection path. I'm using a port 1 serial connection. I'm not using Ethernet. And then I would go to my diagnostics under the target menu, and I would look to see if there's any feedback related to any problems. If there's no feedback that's helpful, the second thing I would do is go back to target, online commands, and I would clear very specifically controller fault table and I/O fault table. And then I would download and run. This allows me to clear out any controller and I/O faults and get the processor back in run mode. Let it go through its full programming process. And the whole idea is I want to try to get the processor back into run mode. Now, as it finishes its sequence, you can tell that I have the toggle switch in the stop mode. The reason for that is because I'm also testing this toggle switch. So the point being that once it finishes going through its sequence of programming, it's going to come to a complete stop. It's not going to allow it to go into run mode. Sometimes these downloads take a little while. Okay. And I'm getting the indication that it's okay to enable my outputs, and I'm going to go ahead and go to run with outputs disabled and then run with outputs enabled, and I can get into run mode. Now, if you go this far and your processor still won't go into run mode, but it seems that the processor is in good health, typically that means, not every time, but typically that means that your problem exists elsewhere, perhaps in your I/O or communication cards, or even what parts these are connected to, short circuits and things like that, that the CPE is detecting. Now, this is a part that we very commonly repair. And if you guys are still stuck after seeing this video, you can contact us at 1-800-360-6802 or find us online at www.pdfsupply.com. Thank you.